My name is Gloria Adigo Lawrence, also known as Jade or known as Jane for my podcast. And that is GADE, not JADE. I am a social worker. I am as I said before, podcaster, and I am an entrepreneur.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode. All right, Gloria, we're going to start it like this. As you can see under here, it is written, everyone has a story.
Yes.
Which means we are really concentrating on the individual behind what they do. So we are you are more important to us than what you do. So we're going to spend a few more minutes on you. So you're originally from Nigeria, correct?
Yes.
Okay, tell us that your Nigeria journey. That is important for us.
So I don't have a lot to give. I left Nigeria when I was a child. So I was born in Ilorin, Nigeria. Both my parents, they are or were bishops or pastors, and left there, and we headed to Jamaica. And that's where my journey is in terms of Nigeria. So I know both my family members on my both parents' side are from Nigeria. That's where they are from. So that's where I was born. But in terms of growing up, I was actually growing up in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm. That is fantastic. That is very interesting.
Yes.
You see, when you have a child now, I don't know if you're married yet, then you'll be telling your children about your origin. You won't find any difficulty at all telling them where you are coming from. Just taking maybe a pen and pointing in a map and say, this is where I am from. You see, that is very important, no? Because, in this podcast, we concentrate a lot about the African diaspora, which is millions of people that are scattered all over. And some of them don't actually know exactly where they are coming from in Africa, even though they know that they are coming from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So for the fact that you know your root, it is something that, of course, we are all proud of, no?
Yes.
You said you were quite young when you left Nigeria, correct?
Yes.
And you grew up in Jamaica.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about the young Gloria now when you were growing up. So what was your passion? What were you really doing in those early years, in like 5, 6, 10, 15, those early years?
I mean, apart from growing up with parents who are bishops and pastors, it's all you do really is to be involved in church. So you go to school, you're involved in whatever church activities there is, and you're now expected. There's some expectations, I'm gonna say, to be a part of the church activities, whether it is to sing on the choir, whether it is to dance, however it is to minister, we're expected to do so. So growing up, that was the expectation. And yes, I was living in Jamaica, but I was growing up still almost in a Nigerian culture, right? So there were differences in how we operated as kids, different from how we saw people that are born in Jamaica, raised in Jamaica, still operated. There are certain things we knew how to do. Let me say respect. I'm not saying that Jamaicans don't have respect, but the level of respect that we have, or the level of how we take things spiritually, or so was totally different from I'm seeing how other persons operated that way. So, I mean, my name was Didioloa going to Jamaica. And it was changed to Gloria. Why? Because people had problems calling it. And so, as a child, you're going to school and everybody calling you a name that is not your name. Whether I don't want to call you Dodo or Didi or something. It was really awful growing up and having people call your name a different way. And sometimes it wasn't funny. You don't find it being funny because they are not used to names like that. So we ended up changing the first name and the last name. So the name was Didoloa Awojobi. So we changed the last name to Adegold because Awojobi means Obehi family. And we changed our first name. So, I mean, it was quite difficult in the transition of, being at home and you're living in a Nigerian household. Well, I mean, that's what I'm growing up and used to. And then going outside of that and seeing something different. But yeah, those are some of the challenges.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it's challenging, but also very, very interesting to know that you have to change your name because the people were able to pronounce it. Of course, sort of try to not to be different, not to fit in, sort of as it were, right?
Mm-hmm.
So only you change your name, or the entire family name was changed?
No, well, apart from the last name, everybody had to change your last name, because my father believed it's best. So out of the entire family in Nigeria, we're the only ones with Ade Gold. Um, but for the first name, my big sister and I changed our name. I have two other siblings, and they're born in Jamaica. Um, but they tend to almost kind of have Nigerian names still. I mean, we haven't gotten rid of our African name at all, because we still have kept our middle names as such. People still pronounce Adegold differently. But it's something, I mean, that we're getting used to. There's nothing really you can do. And I mean, I'm not about to change Adegold again because people have problems calling it. But I could understand the Didioloa. People could not call it. So things like that had to be changed, to kind of make the transition a bit easier. Because at that time we're kids, and having to deal with that at school wasn't pretty. It wasn't a pretty thing.
Mhm. Did you like ask your parent like why they took the decision to change the name, whether they consider other option, or that was what they take that almost like a drastic decision to change the name? Did you have that kind of conversation with your
Well,
parents?
I told them I wanted it to be changed. It was affecting us. And if it's affecting us, I don't really see why it should be kept. I mean, if it is that your kids are being bullied, well, not bullied per se, but if it is that they're having problems every day, they're coming home and crying because of a name can be easily changed. And I mean, the name that I have, the meaning is similar to what it was before. So it's not really a drastic change. And I still use that name. It's just that I don't use it as my first name. So, I mean, I had a choice which name I wanted to choose when it is that we're choosing names. And I mean, at that time, I chose the name that was easier for me to spell.
I see, I see, I see. We're trying to look for the way that is a little bit easier for us, though, because the world is already complex. There are a lot of things out there. So, yeah, I get it. I get you perfectly well. So now, Gloria, when you are in the midst of your friends, and okay, for your friends, I mean, maybe some of your friends, because you are living in the diaspora, who maybe might be coming from China or Europe or in Jamaica, and they tell you to say something about Nigeria. What do you often, I mean, what do you remember of Nigeria? Because you were very small when you left there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to see what kind of information managed to fit that into your head that you have as a picture, as a memory of Nigeria.
Um, I don't think anyone has asked me about tell us about Nigeria more than, I don't know. But I don't know. They have never been asked that question before. I know in terms of tell us something about your family, I can tell them that. And is as it relates to Nigeria, I've always said I think Nigeria has better food than Jamaica. I've always said that. In terms of course we eat my
You
my
like food a lot, no?
my my mom still cooks Nigerian food. We eat that a lot at the home. So I always say, well, Nigerian food is better than Jamaican food. And what else? I mean, I think the persons there, one thing I know about Nigeria is that education is very important to them there. Education and statuses and where you're at, and make sure you always reach for your goals. You're not just stagnant. And I know that's important. Some things about Nigeria that we'll discuss in terms of having a problem with this, that women sometimes don't really have a voice there. That's some of the things that would have been speaking about, because of how I have seen Nigerians behave, the men in particular act or behave. It's almost as if the woman, as I said before, doesn't really have a say. It's the man that's in charge of everything. So that's one of the things I would speak about. But in terms of anything else, I really have not been asked that question to have a conversation to say to them, hey, this how Nigeria was. No.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Podcat. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.